More of a team player. I repeated the phrase in my mind, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. My boss, Marcus, leaned back in his leather chair, that insufferable smile still plastered across his face. "Look, Emma, you're great at what you do. Nobody's denying that," he said, his tone casual. "But Jessica, she knows how to work with people. She brings energy to the office. You're just too focused on results." The words echoed in my head as I sat there, gripping the armrests of my chair. 5 years. I had given 5 years to this company. 5 years of early mornings, late nights, and sacrificed weekends. I had single-handedly landed our biggest clients, streamlined our operations, and increased our department's efficiency by 40%. And now, I was being passed over for a promotion because I was too focused on results. My name is Emma Chin, and at 32, I learned the hard way that corporate success isn't always about merit. Sometimes it's about playing the game, knowing whose ego to stroke and whose coffee to fetch. Jessica was certainly good at that. She'd been with the company for barely 2 years, but she had already mastered the art of taking credit for other people's work while doing virtually none of her own. I sat there, stewing in frustration, as Marcus shuffled some papers on his desk, probably expecting me to break down or protest, but I didn't. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a crisp white envelope, placing it on his desk with a slow, deliberate motion. "I understand," I said, my voice calm but firm, "and I appreciate you letting me know. Here's my resignation letter. My last day will be in 2 weeks." Marcus's smug smile faltered. This clearly wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "Now, Emma, let's not be hasty. Just because you didn't get the promotion—" "It's not hasty," I cut him off, my voice steady. "I've given it a lot of thought. And you're right. I am focused on results. That's why I've decided to pursue other opportunities where that quality is valued." What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't just been working on company projects these past 5 years. In my spare time, I had been building something of my own, something that would make Marcus's promotion look like the joke it was. As I walked out of his office, I could feel the eyes of my coworkers on me. News traveled fast in our department, and Jessica was probably already planning how to redecorate my cubicle. But I kept my head high as I made my way back to my desk, remembering the other piece of paper tucked inside that resignation letter, the one that would make Marcus realize exactly what he was losing. The next 2 weeks went exactly as you'd expect. Jessica pranced around the office like she owned the place, making a show of learning the ropes of her new position. She'd stop by my desk occasionally, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Emma, I hope there are no hard feelings," she said one morning, perching on the edge of my desk. "I know you worked really hard for this promotion." I looked up from my computer, where I was methodically downloading copies of all my work files. Not to steal them. I had too much integrity for that, but to ensure I had documentation of everything I'd contributed to the company. "No hard feelings at all, Jessica," I replied, offering her a polite smile. "I'm sure you'll do great." She smiled back, probably thinking I was admitting defeat. She had no idea. The truth was, for the past 3 years, I had been secretly developing a revolutionary project management system. It had started as a way to keep track of my own work, but it had evolved into something much more powerful. I had tested it, refined it, and used it to achieve the very results Marcus had found so troublesome. And now, with my resignation letter, I'd included a detailed report showing exactly how much money and time my system had saved the company. The kicker? I had also included a notice that I filed for a patent on the system 6 months ago. It had been approved just last week, but that wasn't even the best part. A week into my notice period, I received an email from Robert Chen, no relation, the CEO of our biggest competitor. He'd heard through the grapevine that I was leaving and wanted to meet for coffee. I smiled when I saw his name in my inbox. Everything was falling into place exactly as I had planned. The meeting with Robert was everything I had hoped for. He'd been following my work for months, impressed by how I had transformed our client relationships and streamlined our processes. He didn't just offer me a job, he offered me a partnership role, complete with creative control over my system's implementation across their entire organization. "We've been looking for someone like you, Emma," he said, sliding a contract across the table. "Someone who understands that results matter. The salary is triple what you're making now, plus equity in the company." I took the contract, my hand steady despite the racing thoughts in my mind. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it felt like to be valued. The day I handed in my security badge, Marcus called me into his office one last time. The smug smile was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like panic. "Emma, we need to talk about this report you included with your resignation letter," he said, holding up the papers with shaking hands. "Why didn't you tell us about this system before?" I sat down, smoothing my skirt as I did. "Marcus, I tried. I requested meetings to discuss implementing new efficiency measures 3 times in the past year. You said we needed to focus on team dynamics instead." His face paled as he flipped through the pages of my report. "But this is revolutionary. The potential savings alone, and you've already patented it." I nodded, enjoying the way his voice cracked. "I have, and I've accepted a position with Chen Industries. They're very excited about implementing the system company-wide." Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his mistake finally hitting him. "Chen Industries? Our biggest competitor?" he stammered. "Emma, you can't—" I stood up, straightening my jacket. "What about loyalty to the company?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Loyalty? Like the loyalty you showed me when you promoted Jessica? Like the loyalty you showed when you dismissed every suggestion I made because I wasn't enough of a team player?" Marcus seemed lost for words, staring at me in disbelief. But I didn't need to hear him beg. I had made my choice. "You know what the funny thing is, Marcus?" I said, looking at him one last time. "If you had looked past your biases, if you had actually paid attention to the results I was achieving, instead of focusing on who brought you coffee or laughed at your jokes, none of this would be happening. But you didn't, and now Chen Industries is going to have an advantage that you can't match." The sound of his phone ringing as I walked out of his office was the last thing I heard before closing the door behind me. The next 2 weeks played out exactly as I had imagined. Jessica pranced around the office, eager to flaunt her new position, making a point to stop by my desk regularly, her voice oozing with feigned empathy. "Emma, I'm so sorry things didn't work out the way you wanted," she'd say, her tone sugary sweet as she perched on the edge of my desk. "I know how hard you worked for that promotion." I nodded and smiled politely, pretending to be caught up in my work as I carefully downloaded all my files, making sure to save every last piece of data that represented my contributions. I didn't need to steal anything; those files were already mine. But I did need to keep documentation just in case. After all, it wasn't just the results that mattered in this industry, it was the proof of what you had done. And I wasn't about to leave that behind. But it wasn't just about the files or the patent I had secured. What made these last 2 weeks even more satisfying was the satisfaction of knowing that I was in control. I wasn't the one begging for recognition anymore. I had moved beyond that, and with Robert's offer, I was about to prove to myself and to the industry what I was truly capable of. Then one morning, something happened that I couldn't ignore. My phone buzzed with a message from David, a former colleague still at Meridian. "You might want to check the industry news," the message read. "Something big just dropped about Meridian Corp." Curious, I excused myself from the meeting I was in and hurried to my office. Pulling up the industry news website, I found the headline that made my breath catch. "Meridian Corp stock drops 30% following disastrous quarter." The article detailed how the company had lost 3 major clients in the past quarter, with several others threatening to follow. Project delays had skyrocketed, costs were spiraling out of control, and efficiency metrics had reached all-time lows. It was a mess. As I scrolled through the article, one quote stood out. It was from Thomas Reynolds, one of Meridian's former clients. The quality of service at Meridian has deteriorated significantly in recent months. Projects that used to be completed smoothly are now constantly delayed. It's like they've completely lost their organizational structure. I couldn't help but smile. Those smooth-running projects? Managed by my system. The organizational structure they'd lost, the one I had built over 5 years, the one Marcus had dismissed as irrelevant, it was all falling apart without me. My phone buzzed again, and I saw another message from David. Jessica's having a complete meltdown. She can't handle the workload. Marcus is starting to realize she has no idea what she's doing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jessica, who had spent years taking credit for other people's work, was now being forced to deliver results on her own. Marcus, who had chosen style over substance, was watching his department crumble under the weight of his decisions. It felt almost poetic, but as much as I relished in the idea of watching my old company fall apart, I had bigger things to focus on. At Chen Industries, my system was already showing remarkable results. Project completion times had been cut in half, client satisfaction scores were at record highs, and our efficiency metrics were off the charts. Robert Chen, the CEO, had already approved my proposal to expand the system company-wide, and we were in talks with several major clients who were eager to license the technology. It was happening, and I was finally getting the recognition I deserved. A week later, I was in my office, reviewing a new proposal when Robert walked in, holding a newspaper in his hand. "Have you seen this?" he asked, holding it up for me to see. The headline read, "Meridian Corp CEO steps down amid ongoing crisis." I took the paper from him, nodding as I read through it. "Looks like the board finally realized how badly they mismanaged their talent," I said, looking up at Robert. "They tried to recreate my system, but without the underlying structure it's built on, it wouldn't work." Robert smiled, a knowing expression on his face. "Exactly. And because of everything you've done here in just 6 months, the board has voted unanimously to promote you to Executive Vice President next week." I could hardly believe it. The thought that just a year ago, I had been sitting in Marcus's office, explaining why my focus on results should have been enough to secure the promotion, and now I was being promoted to a top executive position at a company that valued me and my contributions. The contrast was staggering. I felt a rush of pride, not just for the promotion, but for how far I had come. This wasn't just about the title. It was about the acknowledgement of my worth. For once, I wasn't going to have to fight for my seat at the table. I had earned it. The following week, as I sat in the boardroom during my promotion announcement, I looked around at the team gathered there. People who respected me, who valued my input, and who were genuinely excited about the work we were doing. It felt like the complete opposite of the environment I had left behind at Meridian. At Chen Industries, results mattered. Ideas mattered. And I mattered. But it wasn't just the recognition that was satisfying. It was the knowledge that I had done this on my own terms. I had left the company that had failed to see my worth. And in doing so, I had opened up doors that would lead to greater success than I could have ever imagined. As the meeting continued, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from David. "You won't believe this, but Marcus just sent me a message. He wants to talk to you. He knows it's too late, but he wants to acknowledge that he made a huge mistake." I couldn't help but laugh, a bittersweet chuckle. The same Marcus who had told me I was too focused on results and passed me over for a promotion was now admitting his mistake. But it wasn't his apology that mattered. What mattered was that I had already moved on, already built something better for myself. His recognition now was nothing more than a formality. I replied to David, "Thanks, but I'm exactly where I need to be." And I was. Because sometimes the best way to handle rejection is not to get bitter, but to move forward and build something stronger. The next morning, as I prepared for another busy day at Chen Industries, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. My system was changing the industry. I was finally being recognized for my value. And most importantly, I had proven to myself and to everyone else that focusing on results wasn't a flaw. It was the very thing that had propelled me forward. Part 3. The Rise. The weeks that followed my promotion to Executive Vice President were a blur of high-level meetings, strategic planning, and implementation. But through it all, there was a quiet satisfaction that accompanied each day, an assurance that this was where I was always meant to be. I spent countless hours working with my team, guiding them through the intricacies of the new project management system, ensuring its seamless integration across departments, and watching as the ripple effect of our work started to shift the entire company culture. Chen Industries wasn't just succeeding, it was thriving, and I was at the helm, steering it in the direction I'd always envisioned. It was surreal, knowing that just months ago I had been fighting for recognition in a place that had dismissed my worth. But success wasn't just in the accolades or the titles. It was in the tangible outcomes, the real-world impact we were making. Our efficiency metrics were setting new industry standards, and client satisfaction was at an all-time high. The system I had spent years perfecting, the one that had been overlooked and dismissed by those who couldn't see beyond the corporate politics, was now revolutionizing the way projects were managed. The ability to see something I had created go from a concept to a fully functional, transformative tool was, in itself, a sense of fulfillment that no title or promotion could ever truly capture. One morning, I was walking to my office after a long strategy session when my phone buzzed. It was an email from Marcus. He had sent it to me hours ago, but I hadn't gotten around to reading it until now. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the subject line. "Emma, I hope this finds you well." The familiar words left a bitter taste in my mouth, but curiosity pushed me to open it, and I read his message carefully. "Emma, I know this message is overdue, but I felt compelled to reach out. I'm sure you've heard about the recent changes at Meridian Corp, and I wanted to acknowledge my mistake, not just in letting you go, but in failing to understand the value you brought to the table. Your system was the backbone of the company's operations, and we didn't realize its full potential until it was gone. I failed to see the bigger picture, and I can't help but regret it now. I wish you the best in your continued success. You were right about one thing: results do matter." I read the email twice, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. For a brief moment, I felt that familiar sting, the recognition I'd wanted so badly years ago. But it was fleeting. Now it was just a small acknowledgement from someone who had made it clear that he didn't understand what mattered when it counted. I was no longer that person, desperately trying to prove myself. I had already proven my worth, not just to Marcus, not to anyone in the past. I had proven it to myself. I sat back in my chair, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. The view of the city was breathtaking, but it was the view of my own journey that truly captivated me. Everything had led to this moment. The years of hard work, the setbacks, the dismissals, the betrayals, they had all served a single purpose: to forge a version of me that was resilient, strategic, and unyielding in my pursuit of excellence. What Marcus and Meridian had failed to see, what they had underestimated, was the very quality that had propelled me forward: the relentless drive for results. It wasn't about office politics or pleasing the right people. It was about creating value, real value, that couldn't be ignored. As the days passed, I watched as Chen Industries began to experience the fruits of our labor. The company was now not just a leader in the industry, it was becoming a disruptor, setting standards that others were scrambling to keep up with. And all the while, I remained focused on what mattered most: the people in the trenches, the ones who made it all happen. I spent more time working directly with the teams, listening to their ideas, understanding their challenges, and offering guidance where it was needed. For the first time in my career, I wasn't just the one executing plans, I was the one shaping the future. Then, one day, Robert Chen called me into his office. As I walked in, he stood up, smiling widely, holding a glass of champagne. "You've done it, Emma," he said. "You've taken this company from good to great. Your system, your vision, it's transforming everything. You've set the bar for what's possible, and the board is beyond impressed. We want to take it a step further." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "We're announcing your promotion to President of Global Operations at the end of the month. You'll have full oversight of all international expansion. We want you to lead this company into the future." The words hit me like a wave. President of Global Operations. It was more than I could have imagined when I first left Meridian. It was more than I had ever dared to dream when I was sitting in that cold office, handed a resignation letter, and told I wasn't enough. Now, here I was, recognized not just for my ability to deliver results, but for my ability to lead others toward a future that was limitless. I could hardly believe it. There had been times when I had questioned myself, wondering if I was ever going to get the recognition I deserved. And now, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about leading a team, creating a legacy, and reshaping an entire industry. It was about showing everyone, including Marcus, that results weren't just a checkbox on a performance review, they were the very foundation of success. As the months passed, the news about my promotion spread across the industry, and I couldn't help but notice the quiet whispers from former colleagues and industry competitors alike. They knew my name now. They knew the work I had done. They knew that my focus on results, once considered my flaw, was now my greatest strength. Then, one day, as I sat in the boardroom with the leadership team, preparing for our next big move, I received another message, this one, oddly enough, from Jessica. It was brief, but to the point. "I've heard about your promotion. Congratulations. I guess I always knew you had it in you." I couldn't help but laugh. It was the kind of message that made me realize just how far I had come. Jessica, the one who had spent so many years taking credit for other people's work, had finally seen the truth. But there was no bitterness in me anymore. I wasn't interested in proving anything to her or Marcus or anyone from my past. I was focused on what was ahead. And as I closed my email, I looked out at the skyline one more time, knowing that the road ahead was only just beginning. This was my moment, my time to not just shine, but to make an impact that would be felt for years to come. No longer the quiet workhorse, no longer the one fighting for acknowledgement, I had become the leader I had always known I could be. In that moment, I knew one thing for sure. Results didn't just matter. They were everything. And I was going to make sure the world saw it. As the elevator doors opened to my floor, I stepped out and walked toward my office, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. Because success isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And I had done exactly that.